Indeed. Very good to be here with you in front of this majestic old man who means so much to you. He means so much to you with his scarwood on scarwood. Yep. Holding his wounds so gallantly. Can you introduce your dear brother, friend?
Yeah, we really got connected about a little over 25 years ago. My mother was dying, and originally there were two big trunks growing out here, and windstorm and lightning struck down the one side, leaving this huge wound. And so it was our mutual woundedness that drew us to each other, a common vulnerability. I'm more and more convinced that the vulnerability that the Earth feels now, with global warming, with pollution, species diversity declining, and all of this, that we feel a vulnerability as humans, and the Earth does too. And that brings a crisis, but also an incredible, wonderful opportunity to connect, to be like passengers on a runaway train. We have to connect. We have to communicate. And so I started coming over here and imagined our finding a great solace with each other. Both of us were. And so especially in the last 6 or 7 years, I've apprenticed myself to grandfather and come over every night to pray, to stand or sit here in the hollow and to learn from him. So, and then my granddaughter Ellie, she loves him. There's this wonderful story I was sharing with Wayne earlier about how she met him in a dream of mine even before she was born. It's in the book. But to find multi-generations, a little girl, an old man, and a much older tree, connecting, it's been deeply healing for me. He is a cottonwood tree, an eastern cottonwood. He's over 100 years old. He is a male cottonwood tree. I call him grandfather, not purposely, because male cottonwoods will produce red catkins, little flower-like things, in the spring, and they will emit pollen from that. And across the parking lot there are female cottonwoods, and they'll take the pollen, fertilize the seeds, and then wrap these little cottony parachutes around them. And they'll, late May, early June, they will fall to the ground everywhere. And so they are genderized trees that have a great affection for each other. I had never talked to a tree before about 25 years ago, when the same time that he had his tragedy, my mother's dying of cancer with Alzheimer's, and I make a backpacking trip down into the Ozarks, and I have this experience of telling a story to little pine trees. So it's interesting, all those things coming together within the same month, as if trees are coming to me in my woundedness and wanting to say, we're here. And so a deep sense of community, and a wider community. The communion of the saints has always intrigued me, but it's got to include more than just canonized human beings. There are saints, sages just everywhere, and grandfather is one of those. I have two spiritual directors, a Dominican nun I love, and grandfather. And this community has become so important. There's a Hindu sage who said, "How do we treat the others?" He was asked, "How do we treat the others?" And he responded, "There are no others." And to move across that divide, that dualistic divide between nature and culture, us and them, we have all the wisdom and they are just resources. That's a divide we've got to cross. And he has been my Siddhartha ferrying me across the river, the divide, into a much more non-dualistic way of thinking and living. That's a big answer to your question. Sorry.
Thank you. That's a grand answer to the question. And just such a, I hear that, and there's your beloved grandfather here who is so good at being rooted and grounded and connected to all else, with his roots spanning out as far as they do, and connecting with all his sisters and brothers and wives.
Yep. Right.
And we're surrounded by all of these others along the creek and whatnot.
Yeah.
And they're in a great conversation already.
They are. And that's the name of the book.
Yeah.
And that's from Thomas Berry's contention that we as humans have dropped out of the great conversation. We don't talk to rivers and trees, and that's to our great detriment, to our spiritual loss, as well as our failing to love what humans for thousands of years we were so intimately connected, and especially since the Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution, we just pulled back and disconnected and stopped talking and listening. Listening is where we have to begin, of course. Listen from the heart, speak from the heart. It's counsel we do here.
Yeah.
And
use words if necessary.
Yeah, right, exactly. So what I do here is I like to think of the book as a combination of Bill Plotkin's work, Richard Rohr's work, and Carl Jung.
Wow.
I'm fascinated with the passages of life that we go through, although I just focus on 4 as opposed to the 8 that Bill does. I simplify that it's the child, the adolescent, the adult, and the elder, moving through the elements of air, fire, water, and earth around a wheel of psycho-spiritual development. And then to ask along each of those paths, as you move from the path of ascent in childhood and adolescence, and then the path of descent in adulthood and elderhood, what are the spiritual teachers, the nature archetypes that fascinated Jung, that could serve us at various times in our lives? So that kids love to climb trees. Kids love to imagine flying with birds. Kids love to give themselves to the wind. And so wind, birds, and trees are in that first, the air element of childhood that might especially be teachers to children. And then in my elder years, it's mountains, caves, and wolves. And in each of these 12 teachers, I look at a sage or a saint that incorporated them in their personal growth. So it's with the mountain, it's the Baal Shem Tov, the Hasidic Rebbe, who began a movement in the Carpathian Mountains of eastern Ukraine. With the cave, it's Ignatius of Loyola, the cave at Manresa, where everything broke down for him and starts to write the exercises. And then the Wolf of Gubbio with Francis of Assisi. And thinking about how the mountain, the cave, and the wildness of the wolf calls the elder away and yet deeper into so that he goes to the cave, like in the Hindu tradition of the sannyasin, who in the fourth stage of his life would remove himself, but be available to invite others into wisdom and love. So it's an effort to invite us that if we're going to connect with the natural world, you start with one. This has been my first teacher, and to ask all through my life, I've been fascinated with trees, but to ask, not only is there a teacher that draws you at different times of your life, but is there a single totem or teacher that carries you through, that is bedrock for you, and to be able to identify that and to keep coming back to that again and again, that seems really important for me. What does Richard say? How you love one thing is how you love everything.
Yeah, to dig deep,
Yeah.
send down a deep root.
Right.
That sounds, an incredible thing to a very important time, like you're saying, a very important time in our society and our culture, where we're at this, what seems like quite a crossroad, or certainly a impending question mark, an eternal consequence to question mark for ourselves of connect or this can't keep going
Right.
the way we are. It's not sustainable where we are.
It is a time of incredible concern that we've got to do things socially, physically, spiritually, politically that will stop this spiraling into chaos in terms of how we relate to the world. But it's also an occasion to force ourselves, like that image of passengers on a runaway train, that we've got to connect, and it invites us to new ways of speaking and listening to each other. And so Joanna Macy's idea of a great turning, that we really, I think, we're going to blow the Enlightenment out of its mind in terms of the dimensions, richer dimensions of connectivity with all of this that we never imagined before. And if we open ourselves, I will begin not a proficiency, but a capability in speaking confidently. And what will that be an offer? And then you, Banyu tree? Banya tree. You speak Banya. and someone else speaks barred owl, and another person learns orca. And all of these gather together, and through us speak to each other and speak to the earth. We don't know what may happen.
No, indeed.
Yeah.
And there's that sense of the turning needs to churn, and it's going to take a real shift of critical mass, and
absolutely,
and a real shift of heart.
But it starts with a few, and then the hundredth monkey finally gets and it spreads.
The 100th monkey.
Remember that, Sheldrick?
Sharing that with us and introducing us to your dear grandfather. You got something else there?
Yeah, I should have looked up a quote. I just opened Hadewich of Brabant was a 13th century mystic, wonderful woman. And also in this is our entry deeper into God's life in us and in all of us, and a real mystical journey that this invites. into the Holy One, into the great mystery, and how that keeps enlarging.